good evening, and welcome to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa. And both Stephanie Burke and science advisor Matt Moniz are out of the studio tonight, so we've brought in our guest host, our guest fill-in host, the guy who always helps us out when we're shorthanded and always helps us out when we need to reach something off the top shelf.
It's true.
John Brightman.
This is very true.
You certainly are. You certainly come in handy on investigations when we're like, John, can you reach up there and see what's up?
Can you turn the fan off?
Can you put this REM pod up there? Yeah. It's motion detected, so I need to put it up high where nobody else will set it off.
Yep.
So we thank you for joining us tonight. How you been?
Good. Just been busy. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was pretty good. It was quiet, which is the way that we like it. How was yours?
It was good. Quick, went over grandparents, visited with them, and then went home to watch football.
For the first time ever, I didn't have to actually go out and cover a football game on Thanksgiving.
Really?
Yeah, for 17 straight years, I had to cover a football game. Actually, this was the 17th year. So for 16 straight years, I had to cover a football game, a high school game on Thanksgiving morning. This year, I did not have to because of the cold. They moved it to the night before.
Really? Just because of the cold?
A lot of the games around here, they moved it to the night before or the afternoon before, or some were moved to Friday because the idea was that it was going to be record low temperatures here on Thanksgiving, so they thought, people weren't going to show up. Like they tried to make it seem like, oh, we're looking out for the kids, but in actuality, it's because they were worried about the gate.
Yeah.
People aren't going to go out when it's 8 degrees out with a negative wind chill, so they were worried about that. And at least the game that I covered didn't make a difference because there was only maybe 100 people there on both sidelines combined. So
really?
Yeah. But it was nice to be able to wake up on Thanksgiving and not have to, bundle up in 4 layers and rush out to the football game and then rush back and try and write the story as fast as I can so I can get back, I can get somewhere before there's no food left. But, and then, so if I was thankful for anything, it was not having to go cover that game.
And it was cold.
It was. So even just running out to the car to, leave, it was definitely freezing. So, but it's not so cold tonight. It's nice and warm here in the spooky studio, and we'll be taking your calls tonight as we're going to do unscreened paranormal open lines.
That could be dangerous.
Other radio shows tell you that they're unscreened. Ours are totally unscreened. Now, we do have a program that allows us to see the numbers that are calling in, but the reason why I say that they're unscreened is because I don't even look at it. Like, I never think to pull up the program to look at it. So, it's unscreened in that regard. But the good thing is, if you do call in and you act like a jerk, we'll still have your number. So then we can call you back and make your life a living hell. So I won't see the number call in, but I'll just see these lights light up. One of these days, I'm going to have Matt put the camera over on this side so people can see exactly what I'm dealing with. I don't usually have him do that, though, because otherwise people will see, like, I'm getting messages throughout the show and we're messaging each other. And I know that when you're watching from the perspective of the viewer, you think to yourself, well, they're not really paying attention to what's going on, but there's so many things that have to get done during the course of the show. We are paying attention. We just have to do 45 different things at the same time. So it might be that we're answering a message, lining up a guest, trying to figure out some sort of technical problem without talking about it on the air. It could be that Matt's reminding me to take a break or telling me that I have to run a certain thing. Or there's all of this behind-the-scenes stuff that goes on with the show that, that you really don't get to see. I mean, like we like to say around here in the radio business, just give them the sausage, don't show them how it's made. But sometimes, people want to see how the sausage is made, so that may happen. But throughout the course of the show tonight, we will take your calls at 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. If you want to call in throughout the show, we are broadcasting solely on YouTube and on the web stream, on SpookySouthCoast.com, and on the Paranormal Radio app, and on the WBSM app, and everywhere that you can get the show digitally. That's where we're broadcasting tonight because the WBSM airwaves are running a football game. I think it's a college game. I wasn't paying attention. I don't think the Saturday night NFL games, they don't start till next month.
Yeah, next month.
For a couple of weeks, which will probably bump us to web only during those weeks as well. But
and then right after that, it's playoffs.
Yeah, and I think the first week of the playoffs, there'll be some games that are on Saturday nights. But then once we get to like the AFC Championship game week, like
It'll be Sundays.
yeah, then we don't have to worry about that anymore. And then we'll have Saturday nights wide open until the Red Sox season starts. So we'll certainly have plenty of good shows for you coming up. One of the shows that you can count on coming up will be our 13th anniversary show coming up in January, which this year we actually will have the show on our anniversary date on January 26th. So that's pretty interesting. 26th? Yeah, 26th. So, and then we also have some other shows coming up. For example, next week we're going to have Dr. Rita Louise is next week, right, Matt? Yeah. She's coming back to the show for the first time in years, so she'll be joining us. And then we have some other stuff planned coming up. One note for tonight is tonight was supposed to be, if you saw me pushing this on social media a couple weeks ago, tonight was supposed to be the night that the Paranormal Porn Stars joined us. So it's a group of porn stars from the UK who have started a paranormal group and are looking to try to get themselves a TV show. And so when I saw this, it was a story that was going around on all the different, news sites, not just the paranormal sites, but, the regular news sites. When I saw that, I said, well, let me reach out to them and see if they want to come on. And they are definitely game for coming on. The problem is it's 3 a.m. where they live when the show goes live. So they try to get everything together for tonight to have everybody. But, they've got, in addition to being porn stars as well as paranormal investigators, they've got all kinds of other things going on in their lives too. So it's hard to get them at 3 a.m. So what we're going to do is we're going to pre-record something with them sometime coming up the next couple of weeks. And then we'll run that on the show. So maybe a Christmas themed episode. No,
yeah. Do they actually have a show already?
They don't. They're putting together like a pitch for a show.
Okay.
From what I understand, they're trying to get some producers' eyes on them, but they've got practice in front of the camera.
Yeah, this is true.
So they'll join us coming up because we want to find out the inside story. A lot of the times, we've seen this over the years where we've had different people get involved in the paranormal that have interesting outside lives. We talked about this a few weeks ago, when the paranormal kind of works its way into your regular everyday life. But some of these shows and some of these people that have been out looking for shows, they've had a gimmick based on what their actual real day jobs are. And Kane Hodder and and they have the Hollywood Paranormal, the Hollywood Ghost Hunters.
Yep.
So that's the same idea. People that work in the film industry that are into this. Yep. We've had there was the Playboy models that started their own show, their own web series. I think that kind of fell by the wayside. But
that wasn't too long.
But that's the thing is there's people that have these interesting day jobs and they try to incorporate some of that into their work in the paranormal, and it's kind of interesting to some degree, to see how somebody who is I'm very interested to see how somebody who is a porn star
is going to investigate.
No, just deals with being like, I'd like to see like just their regular everyday life. It's got to be awkward when you get recognized. I mean, I guess you own it if you do it. But it's got to be awkward for the person that recognizes you. Like, hey, where do I know you from?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. When have I seen you for like 45 seconds at a time?
Yeah.
But so I give myself too much credit. 45 seconds. But that's we can make those jokes. We're on YouTube only tonight. So that's what I really want to get into the nuts and bolts of. Oh, that was probably a bad phrase to use. But I want to find out, how are you on the set of an adult film, and the conversation turns to the paranormal, and you start to say, I feel like
is spirit in the room watching us right now?
Yeah, like this place might be haunted. I keep hearing these banging sounds, and I don't know what it is. So it just and I don't mean to make fun because I'm sure that they're perfectly fine investigators, but I just want to find out kind of the genesis of how all of this came together and how they plan on keeping that balance of doing what they do and doing this, because is their plan to only go out and investigate publicly, public places? Do they plan on going to residential cases? Because that's a whole different can of worms. When
yes.
when you're bringing somebody into your house that's an adult film star, that might not always be kosher with everybody in the family.
Yes. No, I agree. And then just the aspect of it in general, private homes, like you said, people might not like it, but then it could cause problems between spouses. You never know what could happen.
And the other part too is, we always say, like, when you're a paranormal investigator, you have to be careful because you could bring your own attachments in with you to these investigations. And so is there, let's face it, the pornographic film industry, there's a low life expectancy for a lot of people that are involved in that. So are there spirits that could be attached to them surrounding that industry that could be part of this as well?
That's a good question.
I will say this. They are not the first UK porn stars that I've known that have been into the paranormal. I actually have a friend who is an adult film star in the UK who is very much into the paranormal.
Really?
Yeah. She's been asking for a couple of years now if I can help her get more involved with stuff. And so it's certainly something that is of interest to people in that field over there. I don't know how much in America it's of interest to them, but in the UK, I think they have a pretty good proliferation of shows on their networks too. So
they're a lot more open-minded overseas too.
Not in the UK. They're far more buttoned down, I would think.
Really?
Yeah, not about the paranormal.
No, I'm just saying in general.
But when it comes to pornographic films, I think they're a little bit more buttoned down in the UK.
Really?
But we could ask them.
Yeah.
They'll know for sure.
I was just thinking that it would be more open because most of the countries over there,
right? Other European countries
are a lot more. I don't want to say free giving with it, but more lenient to it.
Right, and you just know when you turn on some of their TV networks.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we were kids and somebody would have satellite.
Yes.
And you go over their house and like, oh, you want to watch German TV? You get to see boobs.
Yep.
Yeah, I do.
Absolutely.
I don't know why that's exciting to me, but I want to see it. It didn't take very long for pornography to get mediocre to Americans. What's the people around the world in general? When once it became free and you can get it anytime, people are like, I don't really care about that.
It's somebody brought up a good question in the chat room, and they were like, I wonder how difficult it would be to take them serious as an investigator if people know going into locations that they're porn stars.
Yeah, that's going to be a big challenge. I mean, look at just how much of a challenge it is for some of these gimmicky paranormal groups around here.
Yeah.
The paranormal expeditions. We were their first ever interview, and that was one of the questions I remember talking with them about. Is you're putting yourselves out there as 3 attractive girls that are out there looking for ghosts. Are you worried that will hurt your credibility as investigators because you are kind of also trying to be models at the same time?
Yep.
And it's something that you have to take into account. I mean, believe me, it's not easy looking this good and being a paranormal investigator.
I wake up every morning and say the same thing.
It's I know I'm so pretty. I hope people take me seriously today.
I get out of the shower and looking in the mirror, and it's hard goddamn work looking this good.
Right. But so far it hasn't gotten in my way, but there's still time. So we will also find out too. We'll talk a little bit later on to Mike from our the Wicked Waters cruise is coming up.
Yes, only a few months away.
The time is running short to sign yourself up and to get involved in it. But our friends from Holiday Maker Travel will be joining us. Mike will be calling in a little while because they've got some information that's going to really hit the website. It hasn't hit the website yet. So we're going to give you a little bit of a scoop on it tonight on Spooky South Coast. But if you've been thinking about joining the Wicked Waters cruise and you haven't quite made the plunge yet, or if you are a part of the cruise and you're looking to add on a little something extra, they've put together an excursion package that is phenomenal. That I was just reading it here.
Without what they've added on, it was already going to be a great trip.
Right. And this additional add-on thing, as I was reading it out loud, I was like, wow, and that. So we'll talk about that coming up as well. There's certainly going to be a lot of fun to be had on the cruise, even if you don't sign up for this additional excursion. But this just blows it out of the water, no pun intended, because this is going to be a phenomenal. Let me just put it to you this way: it's an 8.5-hour excursion.
It's going to be a long day. I mean, the whole trip is going to be a long, fun trip. You can tell already. Even if you don't do some of the excursions, you're going to be busy.
7 days on a ship with me is definitely going to be fun. I can promise that. There might be a day in the middle where we have to kind of put the phone on pause for me to recover for a couple of hours. That happened last time I was on a cruise. I lost a whole day.
Really?
Let me just say, when you get off the ship and you go to Bermuda, bring water with you.
Oh,
Don't take it for granted that you're just going out on a quick excursion and you can grab a bottle of water and come out. Like, bring a big bottle with you, because you need to stay hydrated. I did not, and so I paid the price the next day. I tried to make up for it by drinking screwdrivers, because I was like, the orange juice will balance out the dehydration. No,
I don't think so.
Didn't work. So we'll find out some more about that as well. And again, as I mentioned, we'll take your calls, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. We will keep it open lines so you can talk about whatever it is that is on your mind when it comes to the paranormal. But I will say this. We're getting into I guess we're in now. I have to admit it. We're in the holiday season. Mm-hmm. We're in the Christmas season. And there's a story that's been going around. It's a couple of years old now. I think it's from 2016. Maybe it was from last year. I don't remember exactly. But we shared it on the Spooky South Coast Facebook page, and I've seen a lot of other people share it as well. And it's a story from the Smithsonian about trying to bring back the tradition of Christmas ghost stories. Back in the 19th century and before, ghost stories were a bigger part of Christmas than they were of Halloween. So many of the actual Yuletide stories involved ghosts, and of course the one that's kind of lasted the longest is A Christmas Carol. Mm-hmm. But there was a lot of stories that had ghostly spirits, ghostly attributions to them, and that's part of the reason why you have the holiday spirit, because you're being visited by this feeling, and you're getting this feeling. So one of the things that I'm trying to do is bring some of that back. So we're going to see if we can find some of these more obscure Christmas ghost stories. I know Jeff Belanger, Dustin Pari, they go around and they do lectures solely about like some of these Yuletide ghost stories. Chris Balzano's talked about them with us in the past, and maybe we can bring some of these to the air, some of these forgotten ones. Just think about this, until 5, 6, 7 years ago, people didn't even know about Krampus.
I know, that just seems crazy to me.
But now it's, a story that everybody knows. But it was just something that I remember talking about here on the show. I think we had Jeff on talking about it. And it was, this lost legend that people didn't really talk about. But now it's just part of the vernacular of the holiday season.
Wasn't there a story, somebody asked in the chat room, wasn't there a story just recently that they found the original tomb of St. Nick?
I don't know. We'll have to look more into that. But,
I'll have to take a look, see if I can find something when we go on break.
If there's a tomb, that means Santa Claus is dead, right?
This is true.
Like we're going to break some hearts.
We're going to break a lot of kids' hearts.
I'm trying to put this in a nice way, but if there's a tomb, Saint Nick died. No, then maybe we can go look for Santa Claus's ghost.
This is true.
But we'll talk about more of this, and this is part of what I want to bring into. We're doing an event. I'm doing an event coming up December 8th at the Oliver House in Middleborough, and I want to talk a little bit about these holiday spirits there as well. But of course, the best part is investigating the Oliver House, and we have the house until midnight, and the event was supposed to start at 6:00, so we were going to do 6 to midnight, but it turns out that the KOA campground across the street does their Christmas lights display where they charge like $5 a carload for people to go in and drive through and see all the Christmas lights. So Christy was telling me that it would be really hard for people to get there for 6:00 because the traffic gets so backed up. Mm-hmm. So she said, why not just have people come earlier? So we're going to start showing up at like 3:00 at the Oliver House. and we're going to have all that extra time to hang out and get things ready and to kind of be in the house and get into the mode before we start investigating. So it's definitely going to be well worth it if you want to take part in that. You can go to SpookySouthCoast.com to get your tickets, and certainly if you've never been to the Oliver House, I highly recommend it. We've been doing a couple of events here and there throughout the last couple of weeks, and there's a lot of people that have not been to the Oliver House yet. But also, if you have been, like, this is going to be a pretty unique night. So I recommend, if you've been thinking about going back, take advantage of this night, because it's going to be very low-key. It's going to be super focused on the investigation. And every time I'm there, weird stuff happens.
I just want to take that little square hole in the center there and see what's under it. Every time I go, I want to get that little piece of wood up. Which
one's that? Where?
In the main room where Christy always sets up her equipment. There's that little square in the floor that nobody can, like, pry up and get it up. I just want to see what's in there, if there is even any.
I think it goes into the basement.
No, it goes into the, well, it does, but there's some kind of a support beam underneath it. And they don't know if it's a plug that goes into the beam or if it comes out and there's a hollow thing inside there.
No, well, listen, every time I'm in that basement, I'm not worried about what's in that hole. I'm worried about what's coming at me in the dark because we get shadow people galore. Having phantom legs walk down the stairs and then disappear. That was pretty creepy.
Interesting.
Having pictures fly off the nail in the wall, that the nail was at a 45-degree angle pointing upward, and the picture had a claw, one of those sawtooth hangers. Mm-hmm. And so it fit right over the nail at a 45-degree upward angle, and that meant something had to actually reach out underneath that picture frame and to flip it off the wall. And it did, and it came down, and it was smashed all the glass, took down a clay pot on its way, a couple of clay pots on its way, and nobody has any idea how it could have happened. So just some of the experience we've had at the Oliver House, and you can have some as well if you just go to SpookySouthCoast.com, click on the events tab, and then you can get your tickets to our Holiday Spirits event at I think that's what I called it. I don't remember what I called the event, but it's at the Oliver House, and it's on December 8th. So while we're talking about some of the events that we have coming up, let's welcome Mike from Holiday Maker Travel to the show. Good evening, Mike. Are you with us?
Hey.
Oh. Hello. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I had to make sure I set everything up here correctly. Matt, we're good over there? You can hear him over there? Okay. And we wanted to have you on because there's a scoop you can give us here about something that's being added on to the Wicked Waters cruise.
Exactly. We've got an extra shore excursion available.
And I was reading over this. This is phenomenal. This is beyond just, there's things that you can do when you go on a cruise. When you sign up ahead of time, they have a whole list of things. When you're on the ship, they have a whole list of things. Swimming with dolphins and going on deep sea fishing and all that kind of stuff. But this is like the perfect excursion for people that are into the paranormal.
Exactly. You can't get this on board. This is we put this together especially just for our group.
And so why don't we tell everybody? This is an 8.5-hour excursion.
It is. It's very cool. So I'm glad to talk about it. Do you want me to talk about it now?
Sure, if you can give us the details.
Sure. So the ship arrives in port at 1 o'clock at King's Wharf. We get off the ship 2 o'clock. We depart the boarding area and take a little tour of the island. The King's Wharf is on the west end of Bermuda. We're going to travel all the way over to the east end, and we're going to start the tour at Fort St. Catherine. This was built back in 1614 or something, so 400 years ago. It's a big fort. We'll have an hour to spend exploring the different bunkers and different areas of the fort in our private group. I think we're going to be able to bring some investigating gadgets with us to see what we can find. But we'll spend some time there. And then after that, we're going to take a little trip down to what they call the Unfinished Church. And it's an actual church that was being built it was about 3/4 of the way done, and they stopped. There was fighting between who's building this and who's building that and all kinds of things. But it's hundreds of years old, and we'll get a chance to walk around, walk through it, explore the grounds. And after that, we're going to be able to, it's right by the town of St. George on the east end of Bermuda. So we'll have about an hour to walk through St. George, check out the shops and the stores and the areas in St. George.
And St. George is an awesome little town.
It is. It's about an hour away from the where the ship port is, and it's very cool. A lot of history there.
And then after that, we're gonna have some dinner.
Of course, it's a long tour, so you have to have some food, and of course a couple of drinks. And we're going to have dinner at the White Horse Pub, which is a famous pub and seafood restaurant. It's known for its great food, lively bar scene. It's right on the waterfront, right by the St. George Harbor. We're going to get your choice off the menu: burgers, sandwiches, salmon. I think even steaks on the menu, and of course a couple of drinks. So we'll have a couple hours there to hang out and have some good food. And the coolest part of the tour comes after that.
Yeah, that's and for those of you who have never been to St. George, let me just tell you, like at a certain time, like when it gets dark, things just kind of shut down, and and it gets really creepy, and it's really cool. Like, even though you're in like this little town, like it gets dark, and it just has a feel to it once the sun goes down.
Yeah, as soon as the sun goes down, it kind of buttons up a bit. Everyone's back at their place, wherever they are. But for us, at 8 o'clock, we're going to go on a haunted history tour. It's a walking tour of the town of St. George. And St. George is part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site with 400 years of history. So we're going to have our storyteller guide. He's going to take us through the alleys, the lanes, all around the town there, and we'll get a chance to hear some of the fascinating stories from the famous residents of from many years ago. And we were not sure, but it could be haunted. We can't promise anything, but there'll be a few haunted stories involved.
Let me tell you, I have been to St. George, and I have walked around some of these places that they take you on the ghost tour. No, there's definitely stuff going on. You're going to see
400 years of history. It's just amazing.
And it's stuff that's native to the island. It's pirate stories. It's colonization stories. There's all these different stories that all come together. And you will really get, like, in addition to having the haunted ghost stories, you're going to get the full history of St. George and of Bermuda, which, for all of us geeks that love this stuff, it's just as much to learn about the history as it is the haunts.
Exactly. And what's so cool about this, so we're going to be together for, 8 some hours there, seeing the Fort St. Catherine and the unfinished church and the town and the haunted tour. And we're going to get to hang out with you. Hey, we're going to hang out with Tim from Spooky South Coast. We're going to be with Scott Porter from TWC and Stephanie Burke. So, it's much different than any other kind of event you've ever been to. And this is just one of the, this is just an excursion. It took us months to put this together with all the different parts to it. And we're glad we're able to get it together. So this is the first day we get in Bermuda that this tour is going to go on.
I'm just impressed because, in the past, other paranormal groups have gone to Bermuda and have tried to get into the fort to try to investigate. And it's hard to get into there. They won't let anybody in. So the fact that we can get in there and that we can bring some of our equipment with us and check it out, I mean, that's some pretty groundbreaking stuff.
It's pretty cool. So it's open to the public. So we're going to be a group going in there. We're going to bring a couple of handheld stuff. We hope to find something. We hope they don't kick us out too quick. And this is the first day that we get to Bermuda. We're there for 3 days. So the next day you have all day to go out and explore and do your beach things, see the caves there, the dolphins. And on the second night, we've got a shore excursion that's included. We're going to take a little boat ride to the Bermuda Triangle. And that's already included in the whole package.
Right. This
so we're gonna
this
sail
8.5 hour one on the first day, just so people are following along. This first one is extra, but it's only $149 a person to add on.
$149 includes everything, including dinner and drinks.
I mean, that's amazing. You'll spend that just for dinner for two people to go
Exactly.
out. And so you get this whole big excursion, but then the next day you're saying there's an excursion that's included with your ticket to the Wicked Waters cruise.
Right. So it's a 7-day cruise. So we've got a couple of days at sea on the way there, a day at sea on the way back. At sea, we're going to be doing presentations and lectures from all of you guys, doing some panel discussions. Stephanie's going to be doing some private readings. And then when we get to Bermuda, we do this. This is one of the options for the first day. And then the second night, we're going to take a little cruise right out into the Bermuda Triangle. At twilight, right when the sun goes down. So it's really cool. We'll go out, we'll see some shipwrecks and some other things. It's just a great time.
And the whole trip is going to just be fantastic. It's again, it's from Boston to Bermuda through the Bermuda Triangle. It's myself, Stephanie Burke, Scott Porter. It's going to be just a fantastic time, and certainly it's going to be. I can guarantee you it's going to be some of the most fun you've ever had in your life, because I can promise you I am a party animal on a cruise ship.
And you're going to lead we're going to go up to the top deck one of the nights at sea, and we're going to look for some UFOs. Maybe we'll see something up there.
I know the last time I did it, I saw some stuff that I couldn't explain. We also had John Tenney had some of his occultist friends also try to make some things happen under the water. So we'll see if we can get that to happen again while we're out there. See if we can get his friends to kind of conjure something up for us again. And it's a great time. I mean, it's a chance to hang out. We'll talk about the paranormal, but at the same time, we're also going to be on vacation too. So we get to all hang out.
It's a cruise. So all your food, all your drink, all your meals are included. The cruise is May 10th to the 17th, 2019, next year. We'll be sailing from Boston to Bermuda on the Norwegian Gem. The inside cabin rate starts at $13.49. Includes your 7-night cruise, your port charges, taxes, fees. We have a cocktail party, a group photo, and then you get to pick 2 amenity packages that you could add to your cruise, which could be the drink package. That's all your drinks all week long. You can also add your service fee, or your gratuities, Wi-Fi, or a dining package, or a $75 onboard credit. It's wickedwaterscruise.com. All the details are there. Our information is there. Give us a call. We're happy to talk to anyone about it and go over all the details for them.
And so definitely get on board, no pun intended, and sign up now. And if you come along with us, I can promise you it will be a vacation to remember. So
right. The deposit's only $50 a person through this Cyber Monday weekend, Black Friday through Cyber Monday weekend. $50 a person to hold a space. And the final payment's due in January.
I just want to say, too, I want to thank you and Wendy for working so hard on this, because those $50 deposits, see, what people don't understand is that you guys have been fighting to keep those going since we've announced this cruise, so that people can sign up for this without having to lay a lot of money down right now. So you guys keep fighting to make sure that people can get on board and they can just put that $50 deposit down to be able to do so. So thank you guys for working so hard to making sure not only that this is going to be a great cruise, but also to make sure that people can take part in it in the easiest way possible.
Sure. We're going to be a small group on a big ship. We'll probably be 50 people, maybe 50 to 60 people in the whole group. The ship holds like 2,500 people, so we're a small group on a big ship. We've got about 9 cabins left at our special group rates. After that, the rates are going to go up hundreds of dollars. So 9 cabins left, $50 per person deposit. wickedwaterscruise.com. All the information is in there. Or give us a call tomorrow. We'll be in the office tomorrow and all next week.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike, for all your hard work, and say hi to Wendy for us.
I sure will. Thanks very much. Looking forward to see you guys.
All right.
Have a good night, Mike.
That is Mike from Holiday Maker Travel. And don't forget, too, you can use our codes when you sign up. So you can either use my code Tim, Stephanie's code Burke, or Porter's code Porter. And so if you use those codes, that we know which team you're picking. Who you want to hang out with.
Can you put all three in at one time?
Well, you're going to have to hang out with all three of us no matter what. That's guaranteed. But certainly, I'm just going to put it out there because, Porter's not here and Stephanie's not here. So if you want to use the promo code TIM, it's the easiest one to put in. It's only 3 letters. So you save time right there just by only having to put in 3 letters.
This is true.
Check it out, wickedwaterscruise.com. I got to say, having been through St. George and having been to Bermuda, it's definitely one of. See, when I got there, I didn't have any plans to leave the ship because I was kind of thinking like, I'm not really a beach guy. I'm not really somebody that would want to go out and like, go rent a cabana on the beach all day and just sit there and soak in the sun and swim in the water. Like that's not really my thing. I'll stay on the ship and I'll help out anybody that's on the ship and maybe I'll go swimming in the pool or whatever. But I went on a little excursion with John Tenney and Greg and Dana Newkirk, and we went to there's a what they call Glass Beach, where there's all the sea glass that washes up, collects on this beach. And so that's really cool. But right down the street from that is a maritime graveyard.
Oh, really?
And it's really, really cool. And it's not that far. It's not that big of a walk.
Is that the one that you posted? People were posting pictures of. That's very old looking.
Yes.
Okay.
And so if anybody's coming on the cruise and wants to go out there, I will happily lead everybody out there. I know exactly how to get there. It's an easy walk. Just make sure you bring water, unlike I didn't do. But I'll lead people out there. We can go to the Glass Beach if you want to do that, because the cemetery is pretty much right across the street from there. And, I'm somebody who I'm not very travel savvy. I never flew on a plane until, 5 years ago for the first time. So I'm not somebody that really travels a lot. Like usually if I'm going, I go to places that I can drive to. But so I was a little worried going on cruises and going to other countries and going to places where, they might be taking advantage of people
or might be taking you in general.
Right. But it's not like that at all in Bermuda. Everybody is so nice, so friendly. Everybody speaks English, which is, I know, a concern that a lot of people have when they travel to the Caribbean. Am I going to be able to communicate? Everybody speaks English. It's just very, they know that tourism is what drives everything. Yep. So, they take care of people. And it's not one of these places where you go to other tourist destinations and, you're going to have to shell out all kinds of money to get souvenirs and things. This is like shopping in America, and you just use American money. You don't need to convert your money over.
Oh, so it's not like what I went through when I went to Canada.
No, it's easy. It's even easier than Canada. So, they take American money at all those places, and you can exchange it for Bermudan money if you want to, but they take American money for everything, and it's just a very welcoming place. And so I definitely recommend. But if you are going to go to St. George, don't go on your own, because as I was mentioning to John before the show, it's a hike. Like, you look at it on a map of Bermuda, you're like, oh, it's not that far. Like, we could walk. It's not that far, but it is that far, because there is no straight shot. You have to go through the entire island. You have to go from one side of the island to the other to get there. And you can't drive in Bermuda. Like, you're not going to show up there and rent a car, because they don't let people that aren't from Bermuda drive.
So what do you rent, scooters?
You can rent scooters.
Oh, okay.
I would also recommend that you don't rent a scooter.
Okay.
They do have, they have cabs, they have buses. I think they even have Uber. So you want to do that. You want to try to, if you're going to go on your own, you want to get a ride with somebody who knows how to drive in Bermuda. The roads are very narrow, and they're very windy. So that's why what's so great about these excursions is we get to all go together. So you don't have to worry about getting yourself to and from where you need to be. Yep. I had grand designs of, renting a scooter or a motorcycle or something and just riding all around the island. That's what I was going to do. When I got there and I saw the roads, I'm like, yeah, no, thanks. Because the people who live there drive on them every day. They know how to maneuver them. Yeah. They're not going to be looking out for the stupid American that's trying to drive the motorcycle down the road. So But absolutely, you will have a great time, I promise. And as we mentioned, one of the amenities is the unlimited drink package.
That's the best part of it.
To be able to just walk up to the bar and order whatever you want. And what's funny is, it's a $16 limit per drink when you get the unlimited drink package. So you can only get a drink that's worth up to $16. And most drinks are priced around that on a cruise ship.
Oh, really?
So it's not like you're going up there and paying, $4 for a bud. Mm-hmm. You're going to pay like $11 for a bud if you're paying cash out of your own pocket. I'm just pulling that number out of my head. It's pricier than it would be if you were buying it because, you also have, there's, different fees involved, especially when you're in Bermuda and you're in port. There's port fees and all that stuff involved. So that all gets added onto your card and the tip and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But when you have the drink package, that's all included. So you just walk up to the bar and you order what you want, or you sit down at the table and the waiter or the waitress comes over and they ask you what you want and you just get it. And that's it.
Nice. Now, what happens if you did, like, say, for instance, for me, I only drink Jaeger. So if I got a Jaeger and Red Bull here in the States, that's $12, $15. So it'd probably be, let's say $20. What would happen then? Would you have to pay the difference?
I think if it's over the $16, I think you have to pay the outright price.
Oh.
But I don't know if they even have the Red Bull on the ship. I don't think I saw anybody drinking that.
That's okay. I'll do Jaeger and orange juice.
They do. They do. They'll be able to, I assume they have Jaeger. They must. They don't have the machines. I don't remember seeing the machines. The ones that keep it cold.
Oh.
I don't think I've seen that, but they must have bottles of it. But then, they also have like the daily drink. So every day they have a different cocktail that's like the drink of the day. And so when you go to some of the bars, especially like the bar around the pool, they have it already made up in like these big like containers. And so you just walk up and be like, oh, the drink of the day. Shh, there you go. And there's bars everywhere. It's not, you don't have to wait in line for a drink.
Nice.
And but it's not just about the drinking either. I know I feel like I'm yammering on too much about the cruise, but I'm just trying to give people the information if they've never been. So one of the things that Mike mentioned there is, all your meals are included on the ship. Like he's underselling it. Like you will eat like a king on the ship, included with your price. There's a buffet that's open pretty much all day.
And I'm sure it's not no chintzy buffet.
No, it's not. They have all different, they have different theme days. One day it might be some Asian dishes. One day it might be some Indian dishes. They also have other things. Like they always have burgers and they always have like turkey and steak and all that kind of stuff. But they have different theme stuff. But you walk in the morning and they have a big layout for breakfast with omelet stations and French toast and waffles and everything you could possibly want for breakfast, cereal, coffee, juice. And then you go back at lunch and dinner, and they have all different kinds of other meals. And they have a soft serve machine, so you can go and get an ice cream cone if you want one. But they also have, I don't know if the Gem does. I'm assuming it's the same as the Dawn, which is a ship I've been on twice. They also have a sundae bar.
Really?
By the pool, where like there's a guy like a little white cap that makes you a sundae with anything that you want on it.
So you can just sit by the pool.
You can sit in the pool
and just eat ice cream all day.
I get my ice cream sundae, and I get my aluminum bottle of Budweiser, and I just sit down in the pool with that, and that keeps me going for a couple of hours. I just find a corner and I sit. I don't need to swim. I don't need to move. I just sit there and relax.
That's funny.
But you do. So you get the buffet, but there's also other restaurants throughout the ship where you can eat. There's a couple main dining halls where they have a different menu every day. And so you can go in there and you can say, okay, I'm going to have the New York strip, but I will have the, salmon appetizer, and I'll have the cheesecake for dessert. But you know what? I can't decide if I want the sirloin steak or the turkey, so I'm going to get both. And you just can. And then they have a couple other restaurants. They have an Asian restaurant and a Mexican restaurant, which those aren't included in your dining package. You have to pay to go to those, but they're not that expensive. Like you're paying $10, $12 for a meal. And they have a steakhouse.
They must have a sushi bar.
They do. The Asian place is a sushi place.
Like,
and
hibachi.
The hibachi. Yeah.
Yes.
But that's not included. That's a little extra.
Yeah, but still.
But then you can, but when you get these amenities, you get to pick 2 amenities when you sign up for the cruise. So you can pick the unlimited packet, the unlimited drinks package, but you could also pick the unlimited dining package, which means that you can go into any of those restaurants like you would the buffet, and it's included with everything. So I'm telling everybody, if you're going to sign up, those are the 2 amenities that you want to pick. Don't worry about the onboard credit. Most people just end up spending that in the casino anyway. Don't worry about the Wi-Fi because
you're not going to use it.
You're not going to use it, and I don't know how it's going to be since they've upgraded it, but it's not that great when you're out at sea anyway, and it's just going to frustrate you. You know, for 3 days, disconnect, get to Bermuda, you'll have free Wi-Fi everywhere in Bermuda, and then, you know, for 3 days you can disconnect again. But then if you get the drink package and the dining package, you're golden. You can just do whatever you want on the ship, and you would like the spa. They have a spa where you can get massages.
Really?
Yep, I know you're into that stuff. So
absolutely.
So they have that there as well. You know, that's a little bit more money. They have a casino where you can gamble. I'm not a fan of gambling, but I like to go down there and watch people.
I don't know if I do it there. I mean, we got enough casinos around here.
I'm not a gambler, but I do like to go and walk through there
and watch people lose their money.
Pretty much. And they have a theater where there's constantly shows going on all week long. So it's definitely it's a vacation to remember.
Nice.
So if you've never been, I highly recommend it. wickedwaterscruise.com. April Gardner says the ice cream sells it. Yes, absolutely. Guarantee you that you will not go wrong. Jimmy's in the chat room. It's all about the drinking. Jimmy knows. Jimmy's been there with me.
He's been on a couple of them?
He's been every cruise I've ever been on, Jimmy's on.
Very cool.
And he's going to be on this one too. So, yeah, we'll be closing down the bars together every night. And there's karaoke.
Really?
And you might even see me dance. There's always like trivia games.
We want to
and
see
stuff
you
during
get up
the day.
and sing karaoke.
I've done it. There's video out there. So anyway, that's all coming up with the Wicked Waters Cruise. Just go to wickedwaterscruise.com. Use my promo code Tim or Stephanie's code Burke or Porter's code Porter if you want to use those to sign up. And you can get in there for only having to put $50 down. Not a bad deal at all.
That is a great deal.
And then payments due at the end of January. So if you're a little bit worried right now about, paying for Christmas and you want to pay for all that up front, just put the $50 deposit down. Then when Christmas is over, you got a whole other month to put the rest of the money down. So you can, pay off all your Christmas bills on your credit card and then just put the balance of the cruise on your credit card and pay it off by May and you'll be good to go.
No, that's the best way to do it. That way you can just not have to stress over it during Christmas.
And it makes a great gift too as well. So if you want to surprise the loved one with the best Christmas gift ever, there you go. All right, I think I've done the hard sell on that for everybody. Why don't we take a break? We'll take a quick break, just a minute or so. When we come back on the other side, we'll start taking your calls. The lines are open, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. Paranormal open lines, whatever is on your mind when it comes to the strange and unusual. So we'll be right back with more coming up in just a moment here on Spooky South Coast.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
And we just want to, leave the lines open for the rest of the show. You can call in and you can talk about whatever is on your mind when it comes to the paranormal. 508-996-0500 is the number to call in. There is, there's a lot that's been going on in the paranormal world lately. And some of it is, there's always drama.
Always.
There's always, infighting and there's always issues. But one thing that I've seen, at least in getting out there and doing the different events that I did through October and September and all the library lectures and everything, one thing that I've seen is there seems to be a turn toward people willing to just take a story at face value again. Mm-hmm. People looking to just hear something creepy. Yep. So it's not just about, what can you prove to me? It's not just about what can you show me that is evidence of the paranormal. People are kind of getting on board with just the idea of it's okay just to hear a creepy story. And if it happens to be true, that's all the better. but it's not so much like they're going to worry about the little intricacies of the story. And, you know, we do a stage show, Jeff and Andy and Carl and I, we do a stage show where we go out and, you know, we stand in front of Frank Grace's awesome photos and we tell the ghost stories. And nobody's ever come up to us at the end of one of those and said, hey, I really like that story, but, you know, I have a little bit of a question about the factuality of this and the actuality of that. Like,
They
people
just enjoyed it.
They just like the story. And I think we're getting back to that more. And I think part of what's helped in that is the fact that some of these paranormal TV shows have gone away from the investigation style and they've gone more into the recreation shows where, you know, you've been involved in these where you tell your story on camera and then usually they have an actor who looks nothing like you playing you in a dramatic recreation of what happened.
This is true.
And so, I mean, the guy who played you,
I went from 6'7" to 5'8".
yeah, but like that's okay. Like, you know, you have kind of a unique look. It's going to be hard to find somebody that can properly portray you.
They should have just let me do it. I asked them to. They didn't want to fly me. That's the problem.
Well, yeah. Well, but so you know, but like Moniz, they didn't even try to get close to Moniz in the show that they recreated his UFO abduction story.
No, they didn't.
I was like, this guy doesn't look anything like him. Like, at least put a wig on the guy so he has long hair, you know? But anyway, so these recreation stories are starting to become, you know, the new trend in paranormal television. And I think part of that is because, like, you know, when you do the investigation shows, it's hard to stand out. It's hard to get the equipment that's different than what another show is using. It's hard to go to places that another show hasn't been. You know, it's hard to kind of stand out and have originality for all those episodes. But when you're talking about people's personal stories, it resonates with the viewer. And the same thing happens with books. You know, when people are sharing their own stories, those stories resonate far better with the reader than any theories would. Or any stories, even stories of investigation, I think are starting to wane in terms of people's interest level. You know, it's kind of like, okay, you went out looking for it. So, yeah, you're going to have experiences. But people still love to hear about when somebody wasn't expecting it and they get blindsided by it. And so I like that trend. And I think another reason why it's becoming so popular to have that version of paranormal television now is because horror has made quite a comeback.
It has, over the past couple of years.
I mean, we got duped by Paranormal Activity. I'll freely admit it. You know, we got caught up in the hype when the campaign came out and they were calling it the scariest movie of all time and people were fainting in the theater and, you know, they put the blitz on and they put the campaign out there and they were reaching out to shows like ours and saying, you know, we'd really like you to start pushing Paranormal Activity and we're going to give you tickets to give away and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, we got kind of sucked into that hype. And it turned out not to really be the scariest movie of all time, but it was good, the first one, and it was different and it was unique. And I think kind of from that time period, and right around the time they started remaking those Japanese horror movies like The Ring, and The Grudge, and all those movies, I think from that point on, we've seen a real like a renaissance of horror. And I was trying to figure out, like, what is it that has led to this renaissance? And I was watching, I don't know if you've been watching Eli Roth's History of Horror on AMC.
Oh, absolutely.
So just watching some of those episodes and kind of, you know, thinking more about it. And I realized it's because we're getting away from, like, the slasher flick and the, you know, the monster flick that was so popular, like in the 80s and the 90s. So we're talking the Jason movies, the Freddy movies, you know, even you know, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream, those kind of movies. We're getting away from that and we're getting more into the psychological stuff. And that's what I think is driving this, is that it's not so much about those visceral scares anymore. And the funny part is, you know, we live in a time when you can CGI anything that you want.
Pretty much, yeah.
And you could make a movie that looks ridiculously scary, but that's not what scares people anymore. People don't want the bloody and the gory and all that. They want the psychological. And it makes a big difference. So, you know, The Haunting of Hill House, I don't know if you've watched that series.
Absolutely. I haven't seen the last episode yet.
So I'm just going to tell you this. It's not going to ruin it for you, but the last episode is usually like the last couple of episodes are where people are complaining because it's very heavy on the family.
Yeah.
So, but it's wrapping up the storyline. Yeah. But you know, that's usually my criticism of horror is that you get me hooked for the first two acts of the movie, but then the final act doesn't usually deliver. You know, the ending never delivers in a horror movie for me. But this, you know, the Haunting of Hill House kind of did have somewhat of an acceptable ending. There's still loose ends and all that kind of stuff, but you know, you expect that with a series because it's going to go in a different direction one way or another. They're trying to figure out what direction season 2 will go in. But what I like about it is that you're dealing with, like, there's not a lot of overt scary things that happen in that show.
It's more mental.
And if you go back and if you watch the original The Haunting, the 1963 movie that's based on the same book that led to that series, if you go back and you watch that movie, there's no ghosts in that movie.
I'm trying to think, because I have seen that, and I think you are right. There isn't.
There's no... Like, you're not seeing something fly by you on the screen. You're not seeing something reach out at you. What you're getting is you're getting noises. You're getting, you know, the only real special effects in that movie is the door toward the end of the movie, like kind of like pulsating, almost like expanding toward the people that are in the room. But generally, and this was pointed out in the Eli Roth thing, generally, the horror is conveyed in that movie by just showing the faces of the people.
Yes.
And seeing the way that they're processing this. And I think what the series, The Haunting of Hill House, did is it gave you the character development enough so that you could understand why this stuff freaked them out so much and why it affected each person the way that it did. And I love the fact that I'm glad that because I saw The Haunting years and years ago, and I just went out and I rewatched it last night. And I'm glad that I took the time to do that because now that I've gone back and watched the original, I can see all the little nods and homages to the original and to the Shirley Jackson book that are now in the TV series, which is pretty cool. Like I never would have even remembered the fact that there's that spiral staircase in the library, and then there's a spiral staircase in the TV version. Yeah. So just, things like that. But there's, like, if you watch that whole series, and so you said you've watched all but the last episode, yep. So there's only one jump scare in the entire series.
Pretty much.
Like, the rest of it is, kind of slow burn, slow build horror. And the one jump scare that it does have is, like, a perfect jump scare. Like, it had to be that.
I thought the basement, when he went down the elevator, the little kid, mm-hmm. and the shirt got torn, I thought that was a pretty good scare.
Right.
For him.
But no, there was definitely, like, some really good, freaky, dramatic tension scares. But, none of the... I think jump scares are basically cheap, for the most part. Mm-hmm. And they didn't overuse it. I don't know. I don't know if you want to get in on this, Matt. Have you watched the show yet? Okay. Then I'm not going to ruin it by
saying too much.
Saying what the things are.
That's why I was trying to be careful in case of him or anybody listening, too. I definitely don't want to ruin it.
There's definitely a rewatchability factor for it. Matt shared it out on the Spooky South Coast Facebook page, and I think on the Twitter account too, that you can go back and see all the hidden ghosts that are there in the show, and there are a lot. And I started picking up on some of them myself, like toward the end of them. But so there's definitely a rewatchability to it in that regard. But if you look at some of the, like, haunted house movies, to me are the best. I don't mind slasher films. I don't mind, some of these other things. I love Evil Dead, things like that. But to me, if I want the psychological scares, I love the haunted house or the ghost movies. And some of the older ones are great. Mm. And they get kind of lost in the shuffle. But, like, have you ever seen Burnt Offerings?
No, I haven't. And you're not the first person that said that to me.
It's a great movie. I mean, it's one of those movies where you don't see it on television enough. But if you go out and you look for it and you find it, it's well worth sitting down and watching.
Yeah, I've had a few people tell me that movie that they know that I like horror and they're like, you need to watch this.
Yeah,
you will
it's
appreciate
another one of
it.
those slow burn, psychological build type movies. But I'm glad that at least in that history of horror, Poltergeist got its due for being just the great movie that it is. And that's another one of those movies. That's like the ultimate combination of having that slow build to the horror, but then when it comes time, like all hell breaks loose. And it's one of the few horror movies that has a satisfying ending to me.
It's funny, Colleen's in the chat saying the same thing in big letters. You got to see Burnt Offerings. You got to see it. Yeah,
no, it's a great movie. There's a lot of them though that have kind of. So I don't know if you have the Epix channel. On your cable.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you go into Epix, like they have a bunch of old movies, 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s horror movies. And some of these are total cheese fest, but some of them are really good. Like I record every Saturday night, of course, we're here, but I record Svengoolie on MeTV because they show some really good movies. And right now they're in a run of showing William Castle films. And William Castle's one of my favorite directors of all time because every one of his movies had a gimmick.
Oh, really?
Well, not everyone, but a lot of his movies had a gimmick. So tonight they're showing Mr. Sardonicus. And so Mr. Sardonicus is this character who becomes evil. And at the end of the movie, they would have the audience decide his fate. They supposedly filmed 2 endings. And in one ending, he dies. Mm-hmm. And in the other ending, he's redeemed and he gets to live a happy life. And so they would give people these glow-in-the-dark cards that had a thumb, like kind of like a Facebook like, the thumbs up. And what you would do is when it came time to determine his fate, they would stop the film, or I think William Castle showed up on the screen, and he would say, hold your cards up, thumbs up if you want him to live and be redeemed, thumbs down if you want him to die. And the idea was that the projectionist would look and see and count all these cards in the dark and then run the ending based on how the votes were. But the legend is they never really filmed 2 endings. Like the ending is that he dies. I mean, not to ruin the movie.
Yeah.
But the ending is that he dies. And they did claim that a couple of times, like in a couple of theaters, they did run the ending where he lives, but nobody's ever seen that ending since. So they think it's just kind of a story that's been made up, and that they just assumed that everybody was going to vote thumbs down anyway, so they only really made that one ending.
Oh.
But they had other, Castle's had other movies. Have you seen the original 13 Ghosts?
Not the original, no.
Now the remake was pretty good. I mean, I liked it. The one with Tony Shalhoub and
Matt. We're talking about the same one, right?
I don't know. It was a house where they had
all glass walls.
Yeah, and they had the ghost like trapped in the house. So the original
Matthew Lillard. That's who I was trying to think of.
Okay.
Yep.
So the original William Castle film was the same idea. This guy inherits a mansion from his rich uncle, and the rich uncle is trapped 13 ghosts in the house. Actually, 11 ghosts, and then he becomes the 12th. But anyway, there's 13 ghosts in the house. And so the gimmick with that movie was, what they call it, Illusiono. So with Illusiono, you had the option if you wanted to see the ghosts or not. Mm-hmm. So what they would do is they would give you a red and a white, red and a blue, like 3D glasses.
Yeah.
Except it was one panel was blue at the top and one panel was red at the bottom. Look through this panel if you don't want to see the ghosts. Look through this panel if you do want to see the ghosts. And they would tell you on screen when to use your viewer. So if you held it up and you looked through the blue, they were using basically the same technology as 3D, where they had the red and the blue, but they would just, they would make it so that it would block it out if it was the blue. And then if you use the red, you would see the ghosts. Now, if you watch the movie now, they've removed all of that and they just make it so that you can see the ghosts on the screen. But in those days, you would decide when you went into the theater if you wanted to see the ghosts or not by using that viewer. And then he had another movie called The Tingler. I don't know if you've ever seen this one, Vincent
No.
Price. So
And
Vincent,
I've seen a lot of his movies, and
in The Tingler, the idea is that I forget what they called the gimmick, but the idea of the Tingler is that every human being has this like parasite that lives on your spine, and your spine tingler. So when you're afraid, this thing feeds off of that fear, and so Vincent Price's character is a doctor who's also a mortician, but or a coroner. So he says that if you can catch somebody who dies of fright at the moment that they die and cut them open, you can remove the tingler and prove that it exists. So he does. And it just so happens that in the course of the movie, the tingler gets loose in a movie theater.
really,
So then Vincent Price gets
somebody
to come
just said that in the chat.
So Vincent Price comes on and says, the tingler is in the theater. And so they would put these vibrating boxes under some of the chairs in the theater. And during that scene, they would hit a button that would cause those chairs to vibrate and scare people. And they'd be like, oh my God, the tingler is under my chair. But they didn't do it to every chair. They only did it to some chairs. So so that was the gimmick for that. And then he also had The House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price.
I love that one.
And in that movie, they have, I think I got that right. I think that's the one that's the castle movie. But they had what they called, what would they call it? Was it
It was an old insane asylum.
they called it Emergo or something with Vincent Price, and it was like they paid them $10,000 if they could stay the night.
Yep.
So they had what was called like Emergo. So in that, there's the scene where like the skeleton comes out, and they would actually have a skeleton that would come on a fishing line through the middle of the theater during that part of the.
Really?
So as it was coming out on the screen, it would kind of carry through the entire theater and would go to the back, and they ended up having to get rid of it because all the kids were going to see the movie again and again.
Oh.
And so they knew the skeleton was coming. So when the skeleton came out, they'd all throw their candy at it and all their sodas and everything. And, kids would bring in bats and all those kind of stuff. So I love those William Castle gimmick films. And they're decent movies. They hold up pretty well.
I think Vincent Price, all his movies were awesome. I loved his stuff.
Well, what was great about him is that, in some movies, he was very much like the personification of evil. Mm-hmm. But in a lot of his movies, he was just a guy who was caught up in these... And he had a great way of portraying that side of him where, you kind of felt bad. It was definitely in The Tingler. He's a guy who has a wife who doesn't appreciate him, and she's upset because he spends so much time on his work, and she's cheating on him, and she thinks nothing of coming home with a guy and like making out with the guy right on the front lawn of the house so that everybody knows that this guy basically has to live that lifestyle, and so you feel bad for him, and you feel bad for what he's going through, and he can kind of carry that. And I think that's what works so great about the Haunting of Hill House TV show is like you really felt for the father, even, especially the younger version of the father, the Henry Thomas version. You really felt bad for him and like what he was going through and how he was trying to protect the kids from what was going on.
I was getting those two films confused. You're talking about the house on the Haunted Hill House.
Yes, The House on Haunted Hill, I believe, is the Castle film with Vincent Price.
Yeah.
He brings a bunch of people together, and
yes,
whoever can stay the night will get $10,000.
Yep. But then there's another movie called The Hill House.
There's also The Haunting, which is The Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah.
And then there's also The Legend of Hell House.
Okay. Yep.
So see, there's all these different.
That's why I was getting confused there for a second.
And I, I'm trying to watch the chat here to see if anybody kind of gets what's going on. And Age of Quarrel mentions in the chat room that Castle also produced Rosemary's Baby, and that's true. He did. He actually wanted to direct the movie, but he was kind of told like, no, we want this Polanski guy to do it.
Yeah.
So he didn't get to do Rosemary's Baby, but he thought that would be his chance to kind of get out of these B movies and have an A-list horror project. and it didn't work out. They wouldn't let him direct it. Which, I mean, can you imagine what kind of gimmick you would have came up with for Rosemary's Baby? You know, like
yeah. Somebody just said there's The Hell House by Richard Matheson.
Yeah, there's. If you just go and like look through like Hulu or Netflix or any of these, like you'll find all of these different movies, and you know most of them are worth a watch. I don't think the Liam Neeson movie was very good. That was like a remake of The Haunting.
Yeah,
I don't think that one was very good.
I didn't.
I watched it, but I don't remember that much about it.
And I agree with Age of Quarrel that the Haunting of the Hill House was not that good. That was just not that great of a movie. The Haunting of a Hill House.
No, The Haunting of Hill House is the TV series.
No, and they have a movie about it.
No, that are you thinking of The House on Haunted Hill?
No, they.
I think Age of Quarrel is talking about the TV show.
No, well maybe, but there is a actual movie, that is that, and it's killing me to think who's in it, but it's I'm trying to pull up a site that kind of will kind of explain all these. I'm trying to think of it right now, and because there's the one with Vincent Price, and I know that's the House on Haunted Hill.
That's the castle one.
Yes, that's the one that used to be like an old insane asylum, and the doctors all got burned to death by the patients in there, and all the people he brings back are actual kids and nieces of the actual doctors that all died.
Right. I think Age of Quarrel is talking about the Legend of Hell House.
Oh, okay.
That's the Matheson one. But there was also a remake of that too, I believe.
That I haven't seen. That I know I haven't seen. Interesting.
I don't know.
I'm gonna have to check some of these out.
Basically, if there's a haunted house movie, I'm gonna watch it. And sometimes I get caught watching a stinker, and sometimes I watch something that's actually pretty good. You know, I mean,
I think we all got caught watching Paranormal Activity.
Right. We all kind of bought into the hype.
Yep.
But when you look at look at the Amityville Horror, that's a haunted house movie.
Yeah.
There's another haunted house movie that I think is pretty much forgotten these days, but House. Remember House with William Catt? That was sorry, Matt, I didn't hear your microphone. Oh, your microphone's way over there anyway. So House with William Catt was.
I'm a big William Catt fan anyway, but
right. I mean, he was the greatest American hero.
He was.
But and George Wendt is in that movie.
Yep.
You know,
I always forget if he's in the first one or the second one.
Well, George Wendt.
Yeah.
I think he's in the first one. I don't think I've ever seen the second one.
I think there's a second one.
There is a second one, but I don't think I've ever seen it. Do you remember the other William Catt movie?
Legend.
Yeah, Baby
or White Ghost. Oh, Baby. Yeah.
Baby.
Yeah,
Secret of the Lost Legend.
Secret of the Lost Legends. Yeah. And what is it? White Ghost, the one where he's like a Vietnam guy.
Oh, I don't know if I've seen
Something
that
one. I'm not sure if I have the name of that one right, but
I mean,
it's like where he's like a POW or something.
There's a guy whose career got he'll
be back. He'll be back. I'm holding the candle for him.
Did you get to meet him at Rhode Island Comic Con?
No.
Super nice guy.
Yeah.
Really nice guy. You know who I'm talking about, William Catt, the greatest American hero?
No, I didn't get to meet him.
But you know who I'm talking about. You've seen you've seen the show.
Yes.
It was White Ghost. Yes.
Oh, I've never seen that one. But House was a good haunted house movie. And I will watch any
They made 4?
They made 4 house movies?
Last one was in 1992.
So, all right, they must all have like a house something after them. Like
3.9 on IMDb.
So there was House. What was the second one called?
Hold on.
Like More House?
I think it was House 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Oh my God.
Actually, I haven't seen House in so long. I should rewatch it.
If you're talking about psychological thrillers,
we're talking about House.
Yeah.
What about The Burbs?
I like that one. That's
a great
that
movie.
Didn't do very well, but
No, but I would.
House 2 is has a really lame title. It's called The Second Story.
Yeah, that is kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you look at some of the like Amityville movies, they kind of got away from the haunted house idea, and they started to become about like artifacts from the house were haunted. There was one where one of the Amityville movies was called Amityville something. It's About Time, and it was like a haunted clock from the Amityville house. Like some of that got a little bit weird. But there's some that are like pretty good classic movies that they don't have the same reputation as, The Exorcist or The Omen or movies like that. So they kind of fall by the wayside. Like,
well, a lot of those movies though, The Exorcist, The Omen, or even we'll say Poltergeist, they all came at a certain point where they made just certain little changes to make that shock value even more.
Well, I will sit here and discuss. I will dissect and analyze Poltergeist for an entire 2-hour show because I love that movie and I think it's perfect. But like one of the shows that on the Eli Roth thing, one of the things that they called a haunted house movie was The Shining, and I don't know if I would call The Shining a haunted house movie.
No.
Because it's
like, more about him.
The hotel is haunted, but it's how much that vulnerable state that he's in allows that to kind of seep in. I mean, I guess it's a haunted house to some degree, but I also don't think The Shining is as good as the movies everybody makes it out to be. And I'm sure I'll get some comments in the chat room about that, but just not a big fan of The Shining. Like, it's not terrible. I'll watch if it's on TV, but I like the novel better.
I was just going to say, I actually like the TV version better than the Jack Nicholson movie.
Was Steven Weber?
Yes.
Yeah. I like Steven Weber in just about anything. But yeah, so like just going back to Poltergeist, like I think Poltergeist 2 is a great movie. Poltergeist 3 not so much.
Yeah.
But Poltergeist 2, like I remember, so when I was a kid, I saw the first Poltergeist movie. I want to say I think I was in first grade. So I was like probably 7 years old, 6, 7 years old, however old you are in first grade. And I believe I saw the ABC, movie of the week version. So let's just say, well, let me think. Yeah, so I was in first grade. So that would have been, how old are you in first grade? 6? Yeah, 6, 7?
I would say 6.
So we're looking at 78 and 80, so we're looking at like 1984.
Okay.
So I'm watching the TV ABC movie of the week version of it. I remember because Ernie, what's his name, used to be the voiceover guy.
Ernie Hudson?
No, Ernie, I can't remember his last name, but the voiceover guy that used to do all the ABC movie of the week. Tonight it's Poltergeist. Like I can just remember hearing his voice talking about it. So, like it creeped me out, but it was also the edited for television version. And then I got to see on HBO the real version, like the unedited version. Like they cut out a lot of the stuff that would be way too creepy for TV. I believe, my parents would never let me watch like the maggot scene or the guy pulling his face off. They wouldn't let me watch those parts. But then I finally got to see that part, and so it just I loved it, and I would watch the movie anytime it came on. And then when Poltergeist 2 came out, I wanted to go to the theater so bad to see it, but my parents aren't going to take me in to see an R-rated horror movie, or I think it was only PG-13, but still, they're not taking me in as an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid to go see this movie. So we had to wait till it came out on video. And back in those days, and I think I've talked about this before on the show, back in those days, we didn't have a VCR. My dad used to go and rent a VCR from the supermarket.
Yes. I do remember those days.
And you would get the movie from the supermarket. Well, so originally, we used to go to a place called Curtis Mathis, and that's where we would. I don't know if there was any Curtis Mathises around here, but we had one in Plymouth, and or was it Video Paradise that was in Plymouth? But we used to go to either Curtis Mathis or Video Paradise, and we'd rent movies there, or we'd go to the supermarket when the supermarket had it. So I remember being in the supermarket. It was probably, I don't know what time of year it was, but it was, it got dark early. And seeing Poltergeist 2 on the shelf in the supermarket, like, we got to get this. So you have to rent the VCR, you have to rent the tape, you go home. It was an afternoon, late afternoon, but it was already dark. And we all gathered, the whole family, all 5 kids and my parents, and all sat and watched Poltergeist 2. And at the end of it, I was like, that might be better than the first movie. And everybody kind of looked at me like, what are you talking about? Like, it's nowhere near as good. But I've always loved it, like, ever since then. I think that it was, just bringing in the backstory, bringing in Reverend Cain, bringing in more of the connection of the family having this ability, the grandmother and the mother and Carol Ann having this ability, and just having like a deeper depth to the story instead of it just being like this beast that was trying to capture. Like, now there's like a real backstory to it. I thought it just made it stand out even more, but that's probably the reason why people didn't like it either.
It's killing me. I'm sitting here and I've been trying to Google it and figure out what that movie is called, because it's got something to do with Hill House. They always say it in the movie, and it's got this big mansion that's got cherubs all over the wall, and the cherubs will start to move a little bit.
Was it an older movie or a newer movie?
I want to say in the 90s.
So it's probably the Liam Neeson version of The Haunting.
Maybe it was.
Yeah, that was not such a good movie.
No, well, I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was, but I was trying to think of it. So it is The Haunting of the Hill House.
Well, it's just. I think it's just called The Haunting. I think the remake has the same name as the 1963 movie, but it's still that same story.
Oh, okay.
So they're all based on the Shirley Jackson book.
Okay.
Which came out in, I think, 1959.
Yeah, Ross is saying it's The Haunted with Liam Neeson.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. But I will say this, Poltergeist 3 not so good.
Yeah, I didn't like that one too much.
I actually did not like the remake of Poltergeist.
No.
I'm using that term loosely because I'm not sure if it was a remake or not. I'm not sure if it was a sequel or if it was a remake.
I think it was supposed to be a remake, but it didn't do it justice. And I'm actually worried about that about Pet Sematary.
It wasn't a bad movie, but it was not a Poltergeist movie.
Yeah,
this is kind of the way that I felt about it.
But the Pet Sematary one that's coming out, I love that movie, and I'm worried about how it's going to be redone if they're going to ruin it.
It looks like it's not going to be terrible, but I don't know how I feel about John Lithgow. That's where I have my reservations, because Fred Gwynn was so perfect in the first one.
Oh my God, yes.
That I don't know.
And he's not around any longer, right?
No, he died years ago.
Yeah.
But he was so perfect in that first one that I like. When I'm reading the original book and I'm reading, the Judd Crandall character, like, I can't picture anybody else.
I agree, because that's one of his books that I've read multiple times. I love that book.
And I always tell people, like, if they're like, hey, I've never read a Stephen King book, like, that's the one that you start with.
Yes. No, I agree 100%.
You like that. There are other ones that you could start with, but it kind of has to be that one because it's a shorter book. Mm-hmm. And it kind of brings together everything that he's about without getting too deep into some of the other, side ventures that he does. I suppose like Dead Zone could be another one that could be a good first book.
You definitely don't want to start with the Towers.
No, you can't. You can't start with the Dark Tower series at all, or any of his fantasy stuff.
Yeah.
I would say, like, you can't start with Cujo.
No.
Because Cujo, I don't know. I didn't love it as a book.
Really?
No, I didn't. And I don't really like it as a movie either.
I was just going to ask if you thought the movie was better.
No, it just doesn't. I think the movie's better than the book in terms
Really?
because you can actually visualize it better. But it's just it's hard, you know, a dog that's possessed by the spirit of a serial killer. Like it's hard to kind of get behind.
At least with the movie, it's because of the rabies, being bit.
Right.
You know?
Well, I mean, they kind of allude to it a little bit, but in another one that you really can't give people the start, like maybe this could be a good starting book too, is Christine.
Yep.
Which I think is very underappreciated in terms of the books. It's not a bad movie either, but in terms of the books, like it's a pretty decent book.
A bunch of people are saying The Silver Bullet, and that was a good book.
Well, but that's also like a very short.
Yes.
That's
it's more of a short story than
it's
one of his novels.
What was it? It was like a trade book where you had like illustrations in it and stuff. But some of the short story stuff is probably pretty good. I think that
I still don't think to this day that I've finished The Dark Towers.
I did. It's well worth reading and finishing, but it's a lot.
Oh my God.
And
it's so big.
It doesn't work if you haven't read everything else.
And see, that's the thing. I haven't read everything of his. So
no, you have to read everything else. You have to read Salem's Lot. You have to read It. You have to read The Stand. Like everything kind of all ties together. And I'm not really ruining it and giving it away.
No.
But like, so, you know, there's like, if you've never read Hearts in Atlantis, like Hearts in Atlantis, you have to read that because that's part of the Dark Tower.
And that's probably why I, lost my attention span with that book. With that series.
In the end, pretty much everything that Stephen King has written all ties into the Dark Tower. It's all connected. Some of the stuff is a little bit of an outlier, like Christine, Pet Sematary, things like that can kind of not be interwoven into it, but a lot of it is interwoven into it, and it's not easy. That's why they've had so much trouble like making a movie out of it. Like the movie that came out was bad. The Dark Tower.
Yes. Oh yes. No, that was horrible.
Like looking back on it now, I can honestly say. Like I was trying to be positive about it when it came out, but looking back on it now, it was terrible.
Yeah.
And you know how I know that it was terrible? It's been how long now since it came out and they haven't put it on cable?
Oh, jeez. It's been out for a long time, and I haven't seen it on TV and probably...
They've totally buried it.
Have you seen his new one that just came out on, what was it, Hulu?
Yeah, it was all right. It wasn't great. It's not Stephen King. It's... based on Stephen King.
Yeah, it's based on his book.
It's J.J. Abrams.
I like the way they threw the little parts of all his movies into it.
But there wasn't enough of that.
Well, no. I'm saying the sites, like when the new wardens coming in, they're explaining about the previous wardens, and one was from Shawshank, and they show the little bullet hole.
Right. Yeah.
Little things like that. You see the ice cream store, and it's got the name of one of his. I forgot what it is now.
Yeah, but they have like Nan's Luncheonette.
Yes.
Yeah.
And all that.
But what bothered me about it is like it was all those things were like too cutesy. Like it wasn't enough of an interwoven. It was like we're going to pay homage, but we're not going to actually set it in that world. And that's where it kind of lost me a little bit. They have said that it's going to be like an anthology series, though. So when they come out with another season, it's going to be totally different. Really? And so they can kind of revisit some of that stuff. But I would much rather, like, I thought we were going to see the Castle Rock of, Needful Things, where it's going to be all of those people,
that would have been
like, still living in that town and, like, having all of this stuff go on, have the dark half happening at the same time, all this stuff kind of going on in that window of what went on during that time. But it was, it was just kind of hard. And then there's, if you are going to introduce people to Stephen King, the other part of it that you need to explain to people almost from the beginning is it's deeper than what it seems to be on the surface. And I think that's where he loses a lot of people, because people just want to read like a scary story. They want every book to be like Pet Sematary. And not every book is that way.
No.
You know, like a lot of it is you have to understand the deeper meanings behind it, especially like The Stand or It.
That's another movie I was surprised, you know, seeing it being remade, I was a little concerned, and when I saw it, I was pleasantly surprised that it was as good as it did come out.
It movie? Yeah.
Yes.
No, I thought so too. I mean, it wasn't perfect.
No.
And it certainly was not it wasn't 100% loyal to the book, but it definitely was a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, first and foremost, it was a good movie, and it definitely set up the second one to be an even better movie.
Yes. Which
I'm hoping that's the case. And I've seen some of the casting for the new movie, and I'm like, okay, I like this.
Yep.
And so I have some good. I think it comes out this fall of 2019.
Yeah, I think it's like September or something they were saying.
So it seems like there's a lot of good places that they can go with it. Then the question becomes, do they do the same thing with The Stand? Because that was the other project they were actually, it was Ben Affleck that's been talking about directing The Stand. And I think he could probably do a pretty good job with it, but it's going to be difficult to, even in two movies, to take The Stand and turn it into, like, The Stand would be a great Netflix series or Hulu series.
Yes.
Where you could have like 10 episodes
to explain a lot more, because there is a lot in that book that goes on,
and to really like get all of the scenes into it. Like the TV movie that came out for The Stand, I actually didn't mind it. I thought it was pretty good. But when I read that book, and I read that book 3-4 years before the miniseries came out, when I read that book, Bill Fagerback, whatever his name is, that was who I pictured as Tom Cullen.
Oh, really?
Like, as I'm reading the book, like, that's who's in my head as Tom Cullen. And so I was like so glad when they cast him. But I never would have thought of the guy that played Randall Flagg, I just wouldn't have pictured him being like that, but it worked. What was his name? Jamie Sheridan.
Yes, Jamie.
But so they're talking about redoing that, and I think they could do a pretty good version of that. I actually would insist that if they did that, see, the one thing that I liked about the Dark Tower movie is I wasn't on board with Idris Elba as Roland to begin with, just because, like, it wasn't like a black-white thing. I just didn't think of him as being the, when I look at Idris Elba, I like him automatically when I look at him. And like Roland is kind of a bastard, so I couldn't really picture him as being like that partially bad guy that Roland was. So I liked him in the movie, but it didn't really work for me as him being Roland. But Matthew McConaughey as Walter was great.
Yes. Yeah.
And he should just be the man in black in everything.
I've him in so many different roles that he's played. He's just amazing at it. He can go from being that crazy psycho to being that fun-loving neighbor on his roles. One of the first movies I ever saw him in was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And he fought to not get that movie released. And same thing with Renee Zellweger. They both fought to try and stop it. And they couldn't, obviously. But
it came out later, like taking advantage of their celebrity.
Yeah, it was filmed before. I forgot what movies they were, but it was filmed before 3 of their big movies had just come out, and they didn't want it released. But he played a great role in that.
I mean, I'd like to see him play, because there's all these different characters in the Stephen King universe that are all basically the same character. So, Walter and Randall Flagg, and I think his name is also Flagg in Eyes of the Dragon, and being Flagg in The Stand, like all these different iterations of the same guy, the walking dude, the same guy all the way around. Like McConaughey could play him in every single one of those adaptations, and like that should just be like the one continuity thing between them all. Because there was, I know people said that he was kind of chewing the scenery a little bit in the Dark Tower movie, but what else could you do in that movie?
Yeah.
But I would like to see, a full out adaptation of The Stand, and I'm I'm hoping that they're still going to go forward with the Dark Tower TV series, because that would make all the difference in the world, especially where they could kind of tell the story the same way that the books were laid out, where, you come into it right at the beginning with the gunslinger, and then, in the middle of it, you take a season where it's just going back to Roland's youth, which is what the original plan was it was to make the movies. It was supposed to be a trilogy of movies, I think, with the TV series in between the movies, with like a new season of TV in between the movies, with a TV series was supposed to be like Roland's youth.
Oh, okay.
But then, they're saying like the whole thing kind of has to be reimagined because the movie just did so poorly. And then I don't know if like I'm giving stuff away by saying this, but you saw the Dark Tower movie?
Mm-hmm.
It was not an adaptation of the Dark Tower.
Really?
It was a sequel.
Really?
If you had completed the Dark Tower series,
yeah,
and
which I didn't.
I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but it makes sense.
Okay.
I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean, fair enough. I guess it's hard to say spoiler alert for something that's been, written for 8 years now or whatever, but it is such a monumental thing to go through this series and go through it all as it happens. But the last book of the Dark Tower series ends with the beginning of the Dark Tower series.
Okay.
Everything starts all over again. So that's what the movie was. That's why it wasn't so loyal to the book. It was everything starting over again.
Yep.
And it was kind of a bold choice, but it also didn't work. So, but don't let that ruin it if you haven't read the Dark Tower series. You totally should still go back and read it, because you're going to see stuff that, you're going to read stuff that is just some of the greatest stuff ever written. Not only of our time, but pretty much of any time. So if anybody wants to call in, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. The lines are open for anybody that doesn't want to call in. It is open lines. Talk about whatever you want, but we don't get a chance. We talk about paranormal stuff all the time. We don't really get a chance to talk about horror.
No, we don't.
And John's very much into the horror world. He works with a lot of horror actors and people who are involved in those films, representing them for different shows and events.
So you saw Eli Roth's show this past week.
I saw the ghost one. I haven't seen all the episodes.
And they talked about Poltergeist. They talked about The Exorcist, and Jordan Ladd was on it.
Right. Yep.
What comes on Thursday, Thanksgiving Day? A Hallmark with Jordan and her mother in it. I just found it funny. The same week she's talking horror, then she's doing Hallmark.
Which what was the horror movie that she was in? It was the
she was in Cabin Fever.
Cabin Fever. Okay.
Cabin Fever. Yep.
So I don't know if
she was also in Hostel.
I don't know if I've seen. I don't think I've seen either one of those. But I did see Cabin in the Woods, and that movie was kind of crap, I thought.
Well, the original or the remake?
I don't know, the one where it's all like an experiment.
Cabin in the Woods.
That's the one I'm thinking of, right, Matt? It's got like Thor's in it.
Yeah.
Am I getting confused?
Sigourney Weaver's in it at the end.
Yeah. She's like the one running the experiment.
I thought that was crapola too. I was really disappointed.
So that's the one where like these young people are all going to this cabin in the woods, and they start getting chased by somebody or something or other, but it turns out it's like all like some experiment that they're doing.
Is that the one with the? Well, they all have the hoods on.
They have to appease that god, and they have to sacrifice.
Oh yeah, I forgot
they have to
about
sacrifice
that part.
like the nerd, the athlete.
Oh Jesus!
Okay,
you know what I mean?
I have not seen this.
No, you just made me think about how even more terrible it was. Oh yeah. Yeah, that was not good. I didn't like it. I'm sure there's some people that are going to be like, oh, so witty and different. But no, dumb, stupid. Stupid. Although I will say, like, the best thing to happen to horror in recent years was definitely the Evil Dead TV series. Did you see that?
No, I have not watched that.
Oh, my God. That is so good.
Really?
Yeah. It's dumb. It's dumb, cheesy fun, but that's what The Evil Dead is all about. I mean,
well, I haven't seen all of it yet, but the second season kind of
it drags.
It does, but I think that's when Sam Raimi kind of stopped directing it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Somebody else took over.
But I think he came back for the third season, or at least he was more involved with it. The third season got really weird, but it was it was fun. I mean, I wasn't sorry that I was watching 24 minutes of it every week.
Right.
Like, just 24 minutes of Bruce Campbell is worth it, especially as Ash. But yeah, no, definitely worth it. And I got into this debate with somebody recently too about Evil Dead versus Evil Dead 2. Mm-hmm. And he's like, it's just the same movie. It's just the same movie.
No,
and it's like, it is, but it isn't.
Yeah, I don't think...
it's the same story, but it took it in a completely different direction. Mm-hmm. Like, you wouldn't have Army of Darkness, which is obviously the best movie of the series. Like, you wouldn't have that if it wasn't for what Evil Dead 2 did. So it was kind of like a reboot as a sequel. Mm-hmm. You know, like wait a minute, we don't need to just make this a straight horror movie. Let's make it a campy horror comedy. So, my 2 cents worth on that. Yeah, season 2 did get a little too Hercules-y. There was a lot of. See, they're fighting with me about Cabin in the Woods.
See, I didn't think Cabin in the Woods was that.
Are you thinking of Cabin Fever?
No, that's that. I know that one. That's the one that Jordan's in. Cabin in the Woods. I thought that was the one where the three, 2 guys and a girl kidnap these 2 girls, and they end up, one of them's trying to swim to get away. She shoots her in the back, and she crawls to her home where the people have broken into. Oh, that's Last House on the Left, I bet. I think that's what
I don't think I've seen that either. But that's a remake too, isn't it?
Last House on the Left, yes, it is.
So that's the thing about horror movies, man, is like so many
of them just said, Last House on the Left.
So many of them are just kind of remakes and reboots and all that stuff. It is hard to come up with original ideas. I've seen a few, though. Like, if you go through, like, Netflix or Hulu and you go through, like, some of the horror movies, some of them aren't that great, but every once in a while you'll find a gem.
I'll tell you, I was, and I'm not just saying this because one of the people, somebody I work with that's my client, I'm a huge, like, Manson buff. Like, I like reading anything that I could about Charlie Manson, like learning the history, I love behind the scenes stuff of him hanging out with the Beach Boys, getting to hear that stuff. And I've seen a bunch of the different movies out there, and I wasn't impressed. And there's a movie that came out about 4 years ago. It's called The House of Manson. Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. The guy that plays Charlie does an amazing role. They stick right to what the true story was, and they focus more on his life on the farm side of it, like at their little cult area, than they actually did of him doing his other stuff. So you got to actually see, like, what it was truly like living there, and it was a really good movie if you get a chance to check it out.
Well, I mean, at least that's a different take on it.
Yes.
It's something different than what you usually see.
Yep.
Isn't there a Tarantino Charlie Manson movie coming out?
That's what I've heard, yes. That's what I've heard.
That's probably going to be nuts.
And I'm sure you've both seen Aquarius on Showtime, right?
No.
So that's a Charlie Manson movie starring David Duchovny.
No, that was a TV series.
Series.
That was on NBC.
Oh, it was on NBC.
Yeah, it was on NBC.
See, I saw it on Showtime.
I started watching it, and then I was like, I think I got like halfway through the first season, and I was like, I didn't like the guy that played Manson very much.
Yeah, but it was actually pretty good.
But like I was saying, like going through some of these like Netflix movies, like every once in a while I find one that was pretty good. I can't remember the name of it, but I found one night just flipping through there looking for a good horror movie to watch, where it was, I think it was the 1920s, and there was like an orphanage building or something, and there was a woman who showed up who was kind of a paranormal investigator, and like it was all about like the night she spent in the place. That was a pretty good movie. Can't remember the name of it, but I like the Victoria. What'd you think of Crimson Peak? Some people didn't like it. Some people did.
Crimson Peak. Is that a fairly recent one?
Yeah. That was the one that it was Guillermo del Toro.
I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen it.
It was pretty good. I liked it. I thought it was.
Usually his movies are pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it was good. The other movie, like I liked the movie Mother. Nobody else did.
I did like that. I
mean,
did.
Especially like when you get into what it's really about.
So, it was a good movie. You know, I mean, it had good backstory for it.
It was weird as hell.
Yeah.
But
well, I think that's what made it so good is because of how weird it was.
It wasn't until I realized like what the story was that they were trying to tell. And I don't know the Bible, so I didn't know it that well.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to like read about it online. But once I did, I was like, oh, well, then that's kind of interesting.
There's a new paranormal movie that I just watched that came out. And, you know, when these paranormal movies come out, I'm very skeptical of them to begin with. But I watched the trailer and I figured I'd give it a shot. But it's called The Dwelling. And it's about a couple that they bought a house and they moved back on purpose. And she didn't tell the boyfriend that she grew up in the house and all this tragedy happened because the mother was supposedly dabbling into the paranormal. She moves back there to try and find the spirit that caused all the problems, ends up finding that her mother made an actual psychomanthium chamber in the house. And she starts using it to try and bring the evil out so she can face the evil. And it's a pretty good psychological paranormal thriller.
I'm going to throw this one out there. And I don't know if you've seen it, John. I don't know if you've even heard of it. I don't know if anybody watching. By the way, Commander Sonny Cito in the chat room said the movie I was referring to was The Awakening. So that's the movie that I was talking about with the female paranormal investigator. But I'm going to throw this movie out there. Matt and I have talked about this before. We talked about going to see it, but we didn't. I don't know if you've even heard of it, John. Maybe somebody in the audience has seen it. But how about Mandy?
No.
Have you heard of Mandy?
No.
So apparently this movie is nuts. It's Nicolas Cage, and he lives like out in the woods with like his hippie wife, and this guy shows up and basically decides that he wants to take Nicolas Cage's wife. Like he's like this bad guy, like cult leader or something, I don't know. And so the whole movie is like basically Nicolas Cage like going insane trying to get his wife back. And the visuals are supposed to be crazy, and you can get it. It's one of those movies where it's available on demand even while it's in the theater. But everybody says like you have to go see it on the big screen. And I keep meaning to just pay for it and watch it at home, but I haven't done it yet. Mainly because I'm cheap and I try to steal movies off the internet. But I don't want to spend $8.99 for a movie at home.
Yeah.
But supposedly they're saying that this is the greatest performance of Nicolas Cage's career.
Really?
In this movie. So I don't know if anybody out there has seen it yet. But Age of Quarrel saw it, liked it, but didn't like how obvious it was trying to be a drug movie. Okay, yeah, I'm not really into the drug movies, so I could see where that would be an issue for me. But yeah. So there we go. I'm going to take that into account. I will not pay $8 to watch it. I'll wait till it comes on Netflix or something.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out though when it comes on Netflix. It does sound interesting.
I like Nicolas Cage. I don't know why people hate him so much.
A lot of people give him a lot of crap.
I mean, because he basically plays the same character in most of his movies.
Right. He's a little over the top.
He's very over the top.
Yeah.
But
one of my favorite movies with him was, believe it or not, was The Rock.
Oh, The Rock is a fantastic movie.
It? The cast.
Oh, anybody who doesn't like The Rock, I don't know what's wrong with them.
Yep.
Like, it's just the best movie to, like, just watch on a Saturday afternoon. I saw The Rock, like, 5 times in the theater.
Really?
Yeah, well, because I told this story before, but my cousin and I used to go to the movies all the time when we were in high school and, like, right out of high school because, I would drive to his house in Halifax, and when we would take it, he had, like, a 68 Barracuda. And so I'd drive my, like, crap box to his house, and we'd get into a 68 Barracuda and go to the mall. Then we'd go to the movies. And, for like an entire year, they had a fish tank in the front of the Kingston Mall movie theater. And it was raising money for the Jimmy Fund. And if you could drop a quarter into the shot glass, you got a free movie ticket. Mm-hmm. And so my cousin figured out that if you dropped 4 quarters at the same time, they were heavy enough that they would drop right into the shot glass inside the fish tank. So we would go see a movie for $1. So we would just show up with like a roll of quarters and just go over there and just drop quarters until we got them in there, and we get to go see a movie. And so we saw every movie that came out like multiple times. Like, do you remember that movie Fled? Who was in that movie Fled? I think it was Cowboy Curtis.
Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah, Lawrence Fishburne was in it, and I forget who else.
Stephen Baldwin.
Yeah, Stephen Baldwin. Yeah, that sounds right. And
that's totally off the top of my head.
And Will Patton.
Yeah, Will Patton.
Will Patton was fantastic in that movie.
I don't think I've seen it.
Will Patton's a very underrated actor.
Yeah, and Ross is in the chat going, Lawrence Fishburne, now Baldwin.
I saw that movie like 4 times in the theater because we were seeing it for $1. I saw Nothing to Lose with Tim Robbins and Martin Lawrence multiple times. So it's a good movie.
Yes, no, it is. But
at first, I thought you were going to say Nothing But Trouble.
No, this was well after Nothing But Trouble. But I think you and I are the only people that appreciate that movie.
Yep. I've lent that to somebody. I don't know who has it.
You ever seen Nothing But Trouble?
No.
So that's you've probably seen it, but don't remember it.
Maybe.
So it's Chevy Chase, Demi Moore, and Taylor Negron. The three of them are driving through. What are they? They're coming from like New York City to go to Atlantic City or something. They're driving through like the backwoods of New Jersey. And what happens? They get pulled over for speeding or something.
He does a California rolling stop through through a stop sign, and they pull him over.
And was it John Candy that was the cop?
Yep. And he played a few characters.
Yeah, he was a female in the movie. He played a woman in the movie too.
It was like the cop sister or something.
Yeah.
Well, they were. I don't want to spoil it. I'm pretty sure they were all related. I think that was.
Yes.
That was.
And then Dan Aykroyd plays this like ridiculous judge who like runs the whole county.
Somebody just said that right now.
And for some reason, like mysteriously out of nowhere, the Digital Underground shows up.
Yep. And there's a musical number.
The band, yeah, with Tupac.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. They do All Around the World, same song.
Yep. And then they get thrown in the Bone Crusher.
Yes.
That's funny.
It's such a ridiculous movie.
But I'm going to have to go and see it.
If you had HBO in the early 90s, you saw that movie 100 times.
I probably did and just don't remember.
Just for the people on YouTube, I'm going to find the How Do You Like Your Dog?
How do you like your dog?
Yeah, it's a classic slide for that movie. Every time we would have hot dogs, like if we were cooking hot dogs, one of us would always say, "How do you like your dog?" But it's a weird movie, but it's a classic. And yeah, you get the Digital Underground in the movie.
That's funny.
Tupac's first movie role. All Around the World, same song. But so I forget what I was talking about before we mentioned Nothing But Trouble. Oh, Nothing to Lose. Yeah, so we used to go see all those movies for $1. So I saw a whole bunch of movies multiple times, including movies that were just not that good. But back in those days, I'd go see anything in the theater.
Well, yeah, why not? It's not like today where you could pay $20 to go see a movie.
I love going to the movies. Like, and I would never admit when a movie was bad. If I saw it in the theater, I'm like, yeah, it wasn't that bad. Like, I could never walk out of a movie like, that sucked.
Yeah.
The one movie, so when my wife and I were dating, we went to go see Cell.
Mm-hmm.
The Cell. And she would not stay in the movie theater for that movie.
Really?
She left the theater. She couldn't stay in the theater. She had to go sit out in the car. And I was like, I'll leave too. And she's like, no, stay and watch the movie. But I'm not going to watch the movie. And she went out in the car and just sat out there for 2 hours till I was done watching the movie. You saw that movie?
Oh, yes. I've seen it.
It's just a weird movie.
It is.
But she couldn't deal with it, so she left the theater.
There's another one that's very weird like that. I have all three of them at home and I can't think of it, but it's all about blocks. You get put into this room and these blocks stop moving and you got to crawl through before the room has something happen to it. And if it doesn't, you die. But then if you get into another part, the whole room changes and you could end up upside down. It's really a crazy like thriller like that. Like
I don't
Psycho.
know what that is.
I'll have to send it to you.
They're
forget
saying
what it is.
Cube in the chat.
Yes, it is. It's the Cube. Yep. I love it. I have all three of them.
Everybody's saying that Nothing But Trouble was Chevy Chase's last good funny movie. I would argue that Vegas Vacation was funny.
Yeah, I like it.
I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
But also that was around the same time that he made Memoirs of an Invisible Man.
I don't know if I saw that.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that.
I think you have.
You think so? Was it on Channel 56?
It probably was.
I probably saw that.
So it was. He somehow ends up like getting turned invisible, and Daryl Hannah is like his love interest, which was weird because he looked like 30 years older than her. But like he's turning invisible, and he's like trying. I think Sam Neill's chasing him down. It was not good, but like it was still one of those movies that you just watched it when it came on.
You don't like Man of the House?
Was that the one with Jonathan Taylor Thomas?
Yeah, what? Yeah.
JTT? No, I don't think I've ever seen that one. What was the other one that he had at that time? Cops and Robertsons?
Yes.
With Jack Palance? Yeah, those were not good Chevy Chase. Actually, Chevy Chase, like, from everything that I've heard, is just an asshole.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, see, I've heard actually the opposite.
No, I've heard bad things.
That's why he's not on Community anymore.
Well, nobody's on Community anymore.
Well,
but
that's why they kicked him off.
Well, Jason Lively, who played Rusty in National Lampoon's European Vacation, is one of my clients, and he says he was one of the funnest guys to work with.
But that's old Chevy Chase, like earlier Chevy Chase.
Yes.
People liked earlier Chevy Chase. Now he's just an asshole.
Yeah, but he was talking about when he worked with him, you know, and Jason was probably like 15 or 16 at the time, so Chevy was probably in his 30s.
That's you're for my money though. Like everybody loves Christmas Vacation. I love the first. I love the first one the best. The first movie to me is the best of all the vacation movies.
Where they go to Wally World.
Yeah, but European Vacation is vastly underrated. There's a lot of funny parts of that movie.
Absolutely.
Like, my family and I are looking for sex. Like, just like lines like that are just...
When you think of National Lampoon's Vacation, everybody's first thought is Christmas.
Right.
You know, that's their first thought. Then they go to the Wally World. It could be a toss-up between Christmas and Wally World. But the other ones they do forget about.
There's a mention here from Ross, not to forget Dirty Work. Chevy Chase was terrible in Dirty Work. Like, Chevy Chase was the only part of that movie that was not good.
What was he in Dirty Work?
He was the doctor that was going to perform the heart surgery.
Oh, right. Okay.
But he owed money to the mob.
Yep.
Like, he was the only part of that movie that wasn't good. Although I haven't watched it yet, but on Norm Macdonald has a show. Mm-hmm. There's an episode where he interviews Chevy Chase.
Oh, really?
So, and I know
that's his talk show?
Yes, Norm Macdonald has a show. It's very good.
Yep. I think I saw a clip with him interviewing Mike Tyson. It was pretty funny.
Oh, I didn't see that one yet. I saw David Spade. I saw Judge Judy. I saw Michael Keaton. I saw Drew Barrymore. I've just been flipping through them. I have been watching them like in order. Norm Macdonald is one of the funniest human beings on the planet, as far as I'm concerned.
Or so the Germans would have us believe.
My dad and I were fighting about that on Thanksgiving because my dad just doesn't get it.
Yeah.
But I just love when he just like repeats something. Like, he has this talk show and he has a co-host on the talk show, and the guest will say something and he'll just turn to the co-host and just repeat what the guest just said. Like, it slays me every time. All right, let's take this call, then we'll get out of here. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast. Hello? You're on the radio. Really?
Maybe they didn't want to talk to us.
You don't say. Well, that's fantastic. I'm just doing this now so that people are like, I don't think they have the phone turned on. There was nobody there. Hold on. Here we go again.
Is Frank still on?
Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast. How are you?
Yes, good. Thank you.
Hello. Did something on your mind?
Yeah, I was calling in. We're listening to your station, to the program, and I was going to ask her a question.
Okay. Go right ahead. You're on the air.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. What's your question?
Okay, my question is, will our granddaughter eventually be in charge of her life?
Will your granddaughter be in charge of her life?
Eventually. She's 19. She's had a lot of issues. You know, she's trying to grow up. And we're helping her a lot. And we're grandparents, and that makes us very nervous.
No, I can understand that completely. What program are you listening to on the radio?
Well, I can't hear myself on the radio, but, they gave the number 508-996-0500. It's on Dark Matter. It's the Dark Matter Network.
Oh, okay. So are you looking for Lynn Marie, who is doing the tarot readings?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I think they're rerunning our last week's episode.
Oh,
yeah. You don't want us. You don't want us to try to. You don't want us to try to give you those answers. Not without her here.
All right.
We can barely take care of our own lives, let alone let you know
if somebody else is going to be okay.
Listen, I'll tell you this. My gut feeling is that if you're setting her up with a good base foundation, then she should be able to take care of herself just fine.
Well, her parents didn't, so that's why the grandparents have to.
Well, I think you're setting the example that will lead to great success for her.
I hope so. All right.
I hope so
too. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for
Have a great night.
Bye.
That is definitely our sign that we should get off the air before people start calling in for tarot readings. Until next time, for Matt, for Stephanie, for John, I'm Tim. We want you all to stay spooktacular.